In the expansive universe of the Ben 10 franchise, the Ben 10 Reboot often gets overlooked, sometimes for good reasons.
It's hero time!
It's the newest, and maybe last, version of Ben's story that totally reimagines the classic series. It creates a whole new world and gives our favorite characters fresh personalities.
Come on, Heat Blast! Heat Blast!
With 4 seasons, there are loads of episodes to dive into. But don't stress, we've picked out the best ones for you. So grab some popcorn, kick back, and get ready for some serious hero action. Sometime after finding the Omnitrix, Ben, Gwen, and Grandpa Max arrive at Niagara Falls. Since Ben is known for his recklessness, he is warned not to go into the water. However, he can't hold himself back and reluctantly agrees to let Gwen act as his filter for his silly ideas. That night, Ben sneaks out and jumps into the water as Cannonbolt, unintentionally waking a monster called Hydromander, which starts wreaking havoc by feeding on everything around it. The next morning, the trio wakes up to the chaos caused by the Hydromander, and despite Gwen's warnings, Ben fights it as the new alien overflow. After being defeated at first, they later find the Hydromander appearing sick in the water. Ben thinks he must have defeated it and starts celebrating, only for it to burst into smaller Hydromanders and overwhelm him. After some encouragement from his cousin, Ben performs a huge cannonball and forces the Hydromanders onto land where they are weak. The squad manages to capture the creatures and Gwen apologizes for doubting Ben. Suddenly, Ben does another cannonball, soaking both Gwen and Max. Only if there was an alien that could make him less stupid.
Are you smelling your fingers?
A few days later, villains Morris and Sydney rob a cargo truck of its toxic waste, using it to fuel a mysterious machine. When they run out of waste, they spot a nearby vehicle that could be useful. Meanwhile, Max and Gwen are busy cleaning the rust bucket and most of the mess caused by Ben. Ben, however, doesn't give a single damn and is watching cartoons like the badass he is. Having enough of his slacking around, Max hands Ben a long chore list and leaves with Gwen to explore Bat Guano Caves. Ben isn't too upset, as he's planning to use his alien X-Ellerate to finish the chores quickly. On the other hand, Morris and Sydney are spying on the rust bucket, intending to steal it for their own criminal schemes. After Max and Gwen leave, Ben turns into X-Ellerate to tackle his chores. While cleaning the bumper, he encounters the Bug Brothers, who beat him, hijack the rust bucket, and leave with it. Timed out of his alien form, Ben is forced to walk to a toxic waste dump, where he finds the rust bucket clean. He sees the Bug Brothers up to no good and transforms into 4 arms to confront them. To counter our little hero, Morris activates a magnet, creating a monster made of maggots. 4 Arms fights the monster, but when Morris drops the remote controlling it, 4 Arms destroys the remote, which makes the monster go berserk. The Bug Brothers flee, leaving 4 Arms to handle the situation alone. 4 Arms realizes he must sacrifice the clean rust bucket to destroy the monster's magnet. He throws the rust bucket at the monster and ends up destroying it. After the battle, Ben has a new sense of responsibility and cleans the rust bucket himself without using his alien powers, just in time for Max and Gwen's return.
You think you can win, but you can't win. You're never gonna win.
Later, Ben and Gwen engage in a sumo slammers match and Ben wins by distracting Gwen. As expected, she isn't too happy about it. Max consoles Gwen and tells Ben this is not a true win since he technically cheated. The next day, Ben and Gwen stumble upon a poster for the Midwest Wrestling SmackDown tournament. He decides to join and transforms into X-Ellerate to create a wrestling costume, dubbing himself the Crusher. As 4 Arms, Ben enters the tournament with Gwen as his cornerman, hoping to win the $1,000 prize. He defeats several opponents and advances to the final round against Iron Kyle. After a back and forth, Ben transforms into Overflow and defeats Iron Kyle by using water to short-circuit his suit. Turns out he was just another nerd in a robot suit. Kyle is disqualified for using a robot suit, and Ben is disqualified for using alien technology. As they both blame each other for cheating, they decide to settle their feud in a sumo slammers match.
I got just a thing for earthly domination. Fuzzy chaps. Enough!
At a flea market, Max gives Ben and Gwen $10 to buy something to share. Hex is at the same market and is searching for his stolen Titan gauntlets. Meanwhile, Ben and Gwen find a store where Gwen wants skates and Ben a slushy maker. They can't agree, so the woman offers them the gauntlets of the Titans, but they refuse and leave. Hex observes this from a distance and decides to confront them. As Diamond Head, Ben fights Hex, but Gwen and Ben's argument allows Hex to cast a spell, which ends up swapping their bodies. Ben and Gwen, now in each other's bodies, return to buy the gauntlets to defeat Hex. As the duo struggles to be in each other's bodies, Hex eventually gains the Titan gauntlets and enhances his powers. Gwen, as upgrade, merges with the gauntlets, causing them to overload and destroy themselves. Later, Max tries to reverse the spell, but he is so bad at magic that Hex gets annoyed and shows him how it's done before being imprisoned. After the dust settles, Hex's spellbook is put up for sale by the woman who sold the gauntlets. Later, Max takes Ben and Gwen to Squid City, his favorite childhood pier, which is about to be replaced by a megaplex. While Gwen doesn't care much, Ben's fear of squids kicks in, and he transforms into Cannonball to hide among the vendors. Just then, the giant steampunk octopus, the Cloctopus, shows up and attacks the pier to prevent the megaplex construction. Seeing the giant squid, Ben has a flashback to a school play where he failed to save his crew from fake squid tentacles, which gave him PTSD. Ben tries to fight the Cloctopus as ex-Ellerit but struggles due to past trauma. Steam Smythe, the captain of the Cloctopus, agrees to a duel with Max and Gwen, with Ben as their champion. However, Ben starts shitting his pants and runs away. Smythe tries to strike Max and Gwen, but is stopped by Ben, who returns as 4 arms. Ben then has another trauma-inducing flashback but decides to face his fear and destroys the Cloctopus with Max's encouragement. Smythe escapes, and Ben, back to normal, is praised by Max for confronting his fear.
This one is huge! I caught a real monster! Award swag. Hey, Ben, did you win something?
Sometime later, Ben is at a fishing pier and catches a fish, which earns him a medal from a fisherman. Just then, Gwen shows up with a big trophy, making Ben feel unnoticed for his heroics. Seeing him sad, Max reminds Ben that being a hero is about helping other people, not getting trophies. Suddenly, they hear screams and find a boat on fire. As Ben tries to help, a man named Tim Bucktu, who thinks Ben is a bad guy, argues with him until Gwen stops them and suggests they shake hands. Despite that, Tim challenges Ben to a contest, but they both end up tired, mostly because Ben is a kid and Tim could lose some weight. As another explosion occurs, Tim flies off to save the day. Ben and the rest think he is a good guy, but later find out Tim caused the chaos to look like a hero. Ben, as Diamond Head, stops Tim from running and prevents a dam from breaking. The police take Tim away and he vows to get revenge.
The Forgetti! Come on, Gwen.
One day, Gwen tells the story of the Forgetti, a yeti that makes people forget they ever saw it. Ben mocks her, claiming he can invent better creatures in his sleep. Just then, 2 idiots, Tevin and Melvin, show up and tease Gwen for believing in the Forgetti. Later, Gwen is exploring when she spots movement and thinks it's the Forgetti, but as it turns out, it's Tevin and Melvin again. After Ben transforms into Diamond Head to scare them off, Gwen continues searching, spotting what she believes is the Forgetti, but this time it's Dr. Anima who captures Max. Finally, Gwen admits the Forgetti isn't real to focus on rescuing Max. At Animo's cave, he plans to mutate Max with a salamander when Ben and Gwen sneak in, with Ben transforming into gray matter to steal a laser from Animo's pet Gil. Animo catches them and threatens Gwen, forcing Ben to surrender. Suddenly, it gets all foggy and the real Forgetti appears. Gwen and Animo see it, but before she can call Ben, all of them fall asleep. Later, Ben, Gwen, and Max wake up in the forest, confused about how they captured Animo. Melvin and Tevin also wake up and make only themselves laugh because of their earlier prank. Gwen suggests the Forgetti might have been involved, but Ben is still laughing at the idea. Unbeknownst to them, the Forgetti watches from the trees. On their adventure, the Tennysons arrive at the exciting Adrena World, a new and improved amusement park. Ben notices Frightwig, a member of the Circus Freak trio, but before he can warn Gwen, she disappears. While Gwen and Max eagerly explore the park, Ben decides to investigate. Meanwhile, Frightwig and the Circus Freaks discuss their plan to use Zombozo's hypno machine. Ben, as ex-Ellerit, tries to thwart their scheme but struggles to understand their intentions. He eventually decides to find Gwen and Max to warn them. Gwen and Max, unaware of the danger, attempt to enjoy a ride when Zombozo appears, revealing himself as the park's new manager. He activates his device, causing a blackout and hypnotizing everyone in the park, including Gwen and Max. Ex-Ellerit, now faced with hypnotized crowds, transforms into Cannonbolt to defeat the Circus Freaks and destroy the Hypno Towers. He confronts Zombozo, who remains confident despite the destruction of his relays. Ben, now as Upgrade, outsmarts Zombozo, reversing the hypnosis and trapping him in a thrilling ride. Although the Circus Freaks escape, the Tennysons manage to enjoy the rest of their day at the park, including a thrilling roller coaster ride. Despite his regrets about letting Zombozo escape, Gwen and Max cheer Ben, reminding him of his success. Soon after, Max, Gwen, and Ben find themselves on a movie set in Miami, much to Ben's disappointment as he'd rather be at the beach. Gwen spots Michael Morningstar, celebrity Ben claims not to idolize, though Gwen teases him about a past encounter with Mr. Munch where Ben seems starstruck. As Max walks off with an employee, Ben and Gwen's argument leads to them being kicked off the set, much to Gwen's frustration. Gwen starts acting like a pop stand to Morningstar, and Ben, agreeing to help, transforms into Wild Vine to bypass security so she can meet him. Back on set, as Michael starts absorbing life energy during a scene, Ben intervenes but is thrown aside. Michael then begins absorbing Gwen's energy until the director stops him. During a stunt scene, Ben as Diamond Head saves the driver while Gwen tries to talk to Michael, who is injured. Two fangirls help Michael up, leaving Gwen disappointed. As Michael absorbs life energy from fans, Gwen confronts him, only to be saved by Ben as Heat Blast. Heat Blast attracts attention, allowing him to defeat Michael, who is left in a weakened state. A former agent of Michael's offers Heat Blast a deal, but he declines. Max and Gwen praise Ben for his heroism, and they head to the beach. Meanwhile, Michael continues his energy absorption with a new victim, whom we will meet later. A few days later, Cannonbolt fights one of Dr. Anemo's mutated creatures, the Terramate. Cannonbolt tries to escape but gets caught and thrown around. He manages to knock the Terramate over, but it gets back up and hits him with a tree, sending Cannonbolt flying into the rust bucket. Suddenly, his Omnitrix starts beeping. The Terramate hits Cannonbolt again while he's distracted, and he chases after it, but then times out. Later, Ben complains about the bad guys always getting away, but Max reassures him that he did his best. The Omnitrix beeps again, and the rust bucket starts shaking. As they look up at Mount Megalodon, Gwen explains that it's a dormant volcano that's been inactive for years. Just then, Dr. Anemo appears in his drone, announcing his plan to reactivate the volcano and blackmail the city of Portland to pay him to stop it. As Ben searches for the right alien to fight Amino, he notices one alien he's never seen before. Max suggests it might be related to the beeping, which can indicate some kind of warning. Ben activates the alien, transforming into a new form. Gwen asks what he'll call this alien, and words whisper in Ben's head, giving him the name Gax. Gax then makes his way up the mountain, discovering some of his abilities along the way. He fights the Terramate at the volcano's peak, using its body to plug some of the holes where lava is escaping. During the fight, Gax is thrown off the mountain but catches himself while discovering his laser eyes in the process. Just then, Anemo's drone shows up and taunts Ben for making the situation worse than it already was. As Ben struggles to beat the Terramate, Max drives the rust bucket into the creature, knocking it off the mountain. Gwen tells Ben to use another alien, but he transforms back into Gax. Gax thinks he's got it under control until the Terramate jumps out and attacks again. Gax throws the creature into the volcano, causing a rock slide. Max drives them to safety, and Gwen tells Ben to get away from the volcano to avoid making things worse. This gives Gax an idea. He throws the Terramate into the volcano, causing a bigger rock slide that plugs the lava flow. Later, Ben is still Gax, carving his name into a rock. Gwen mentions it's strange that Ben hasn't timed out yet, but Ben thinks it's awesome. Just then, the Omnitrix peeps again, but instead of transforming him back to Ben, it transforms him into Wild Vine. Gwen asks why he hasn't changed back to Ben, but Ben is as stupid as ever and enjoys being Wild Vine. He then transforms into Gray Matter, then Cannonbolt, but instead of being worried, he just enjoys having more hero time. Now, only if Ben were a little more serious regarding the potential weapon of mass destruction that he dons on his wrist, we wouldn't be having the problem we are just about to face. Later, the Tennyson trio drives through Portland with Gwen asking where they're headed. Max explains they're going to see his old buddy Phil at a construction site to help fix Ben's malfunctioning watch. In the back of the RV, Ben is transforming uncontrollably between different aliens. Despite Max's warnings about potential consequences, Ben runs off as X-Ellerate and continues to switch between aliens to help people. Later, Gwen pulls Ben back into the rust bucket, urging him to calm down until they figure out the watch's glitch. Ben disagrees and transforms into Cannonbolt, rolling off to help some firemen. Mid-air, he transforms into Gax and hits the ground. Max and Gwen rush to an underground worksite where voices call for help. Recognizing Phil's voice, Ben has Gax lasers through the rocks, saving the crew and Phil. Phil is amazed by Ben's watch and asks May questions, but Ben insists they need to get out. Transforming into 4 arms, Ben helps Phil fix the train controls before switching to Gray Matter. Suddenly, the train is attacked by bounty hunters Krob and Six, with Tetrax joining them. Phil tells Ben to use the watch, but Ben is trapped and randomly transforms into Overflow, flooding the room. Tetrax blasts the door open and the water flushes out the hunters. A fight ensues between Ben and the hunters, with Ben managing to shoot 6-6 off the train. However, the controls are damaged, and the train has no brakes. The bounty hunters demand the Omnitrix, but flee after noticing that the train is about to fall off a cliff. Just then, Max and Gwen arrive in the rust bucket and Ben swings them to safety just in time. Later, as Max and Gwen console Ben, who's sad about the hunters escaping, Phil thanks Ben for saving his life and speculates the hunters weren't after the watch but something inside it. Ben turns the watch's dial, realizing they are after Gax. The Tennyson trio, along with Phil, drives deep into a forest to get away from the city. Ben wakes up and learns from Gwen that he's been switching aliens every 15 minutes. Phil is working on the watch, which has been beeping more frequently. He suggests the beeping might be an alarm that attracted the other aliens to Gax. Phil attaches a device to monitor the watch's energy signatures, but Ben is frustrated and storms off like an idiot to test his new powers. This is where we realize that Ben still hasn't accepted that sometimes he should let others take the lead. All that hero talk is really getting to his head. Deeper into the forest, Ben transforms into Gax and experiments with his abilities, but accidentally sets the forest on fire. As he tries to control the fire, he rapidly changes between different aliens, worsening the situation. Just as things look dire, a ship crash lands and extinguishes the flames. Ben then notices another alien named Vil, who reveals himself as an older, more experienced version of Gax. Vil explains Gax's power and guides Ben in using his laser eyes. However, Vil secretly absorbs Gax's DNA from the Omnitrix, restoring his full strength and revealing himself as Vilgax. Vilgax is now at full power and plans to destroy the Omnitrix. Just then, the bounty hunters arrive and surprise Ben by attacking Vilgax. Ben, as Accelerate, helps Max and Gwen to safety, unsure why the bounty hunters are on their side. The battle ensues, with Ben rapidly switching between different aliens, but Vilgax easily overpowers him. Despite Ben's efforts, Ben struggles until he becomes Diamond Head and temporarily blinds Vilgax with crystals. Max and Gwen arrive to check on Ben, but Vilgax quickly returns and throws him far away. Ben transforms between Accelerate, Heat Blast, and others while being thrown, eventually hitting a mountain. Rocks fall on Ben, and Vilgax deems him pitiful before leaving in his ship. You know you've messed up when even the villains think you're pathetic. Max, Gwen, and Phil rush to Ben, finding gray matter under the rocks. Relieved that Ben is alive, they notice the Omnitrix has cracked and fused into an open state, with Ben unable to revert to his human form. The Tennyson family with Phil visits a picnic site, but Ben's rapid alien changes prevent him from eating. Phil deduces that Vilgax is causing the Omnitrix to malfunction and tracks him to Mount Megalodon. As they approach, Vilgax destabilizes the volcano and Ben, transforming into Heat Blast, prevents the rust bucket from moving but falls into the volcano, all while he is juggling through several aliens. Eventually, Ben rockets onto Vilgax's ship as Heat Blast, where Vilgax thanks Ben for bringing the Omnitrix and attacks him. At this point, Ben struggles due to being exhausted, and Vilgax decides to take the Omnitrix. Luckily, Gwen intervenes and distracts Vilgax with a fire extinguisher. Ben, as Cannonbolt, saves her and creates a diamond shield with Diamond Head. Gwen encourages Ben, and he throws her to Max for safety. Ben then attacks Vilgax, who overpowers him and repairs the Omnitrix, reverting Ben to human. Using Gwen's mitten, Ben jams a device into Vilgax's arm and transforms into Upgrade, sinking the ship into magma. Upgrade then upgrades the Omnitrix, allowing him to create Glitch, who will become important later on. The Omnitrix glows and Ben cycles through several aliens and finally defeats Vilgax by sinking his ship. Max, Gwen, and Phil, who see this from a distance, believe Ben is dead, but he reveals he's alive. Later, Ben explains to Gwen that upgrading the Omnitrix gave him a temporary boost to switch aliens. In the end, the Omnitrix reverts to its original state, and Phil leaves the group since he has other business to attend to. This is where Ben has his first close-to-death experience and starts valuing those around him just a little bit more. Season 2.
I'm counting. The Pioneer Model E. Wow, it's better than I imagined. Hey!
Well, who knew you guys were such big fans of aeronautics?
Sometime later, on a visit to Cape Canaveral, Gwen is fascinated by the Pioneer Model E, a government fusion-powered plane. Ben wants to see Captain Betts McCabe, whom he admires, while Gwen is impressed by the plane's scientific achievements. As Captain McCabe prepares for takeoff, Vilgax attacks, intending to steal the plane's power source. Ben transforms into Accelerate to stop Vilgax, but times out mid-mission and ends up clinging to the plane for dear life. Max and Gwen, realizing Ben is in trouble, scramble to help from the rust bucket. Ben, now transformed into gray matter, sneaks into the ship and meets Captain McCabe. Ground control contacts Vilgax, who threatens to use the ship's engine for destruction. Max and Gwen manage to hack into the ship's controls and reduce engine thrust, while Ben and McCabe struggle to open the cockpit door. With Gwen's help, they succeed, and McCabe vows to fight Vilgax. Vilgax attacks Ben, whose Omnitrix recharges, transforming him into a new form called Omni-Enhanced Diamond Head, covered with plasma energy and rocks. This is like a new way of introducing the ultimate alien concept in the previous series, albeit with some different properties. Despite his new powers, Vilgax overpowers him. But as McCabe distracts Vilgax by throwing crates, Ben orders Gwen to open the hatch. Vilgax is nearly sucked out but clings to Ben as his last resort. However, Ben, as Diamond Head, forms a laser cannon and blasts Vilgax, who damages the plane's wing as he falls. Just then, Gwen loses control of the ship, but McCabe manages to steer it manually. In the end, McCabe credits the Tennysons as Coppola's, making Ben and Gwen proud. A few days later, the Tennysons are in a desert area when a mudslide occurs, prompting Ben to transform into Omni-Enhanced 4 arms. Using a shockwave, he stops the mudslide and saves everyone from a falling building. Max expresses concern about this new Omni-Enhanced upgrade to Ben's aliens, but Ben tells him to scoot over. Just then, the conversation is interrupted by Vilgax, who warns about the dangers of the Omnitrix, claiming Ben himself is the threat due to its powerful blue energy. Ben tells him to shut his trap and attacks Vilgax's Omni-Enhanced 4 arms, causing massive destruction. After Ben times out, Vilgax explains that the energy is too much for Earth, and Ben is endangering everyone by being here. Ben ignores him and transforms into Omni-Enhanced Heat Blast. Vilgax dodges the attack, causing snow to fall and freeze everyone. When Ben times out again, Vilgax unfreezes them and insists Ben hand over the Omnitrix, but Ben refuses. A new alien called Shock Rock appears and is supposedly made entirely of the energy causing the Omni enhancements. Ben transforms into Shock Rock and battles Vilgax, who continues to warn about the dangers of this alien. After the fight, Vilgax finally has enough of Ben's bullshit and leaves them be. In the desert, Ben realizes giving the Omnitrix to Vilgax could mean world domination, but if he continues to use it, it might destroy the world. This is where Ben starts to doubt himself and wonders if it's best to give up the watch for the greater good. As they head into the open desert to test Shock Rock's powers, they meet Tevin and Melvin on the way. Finding a discreet area, Ben transforms into Shock Rock and begins testing his energy abilities. Starting small, he soon goes bigger, causing changes in the weather. Rain, then snow, and finally a sudden temperature rise. Celebrating his control over the alien, a massive energy blast inadvertently creates a tornado, pulling Gwen and Shock Rock into it. Ben, Gwen, and the Spirit Walkers spin around in the tornado, which suddenly stops, and they all begin to fall. Ben hits his watch, attempting to transform into Stinkfly, but gets Omni-Enhanced Overflow instead. Using Overflow's water cannons, he creates a lake for them to land in. Back at their campsite, Ben is feeling down, so Gwen reassures him that he's great at being a hero and advises him to seek guidance from the crystals. Ben wanders into the desert, transforms into Diamond Head, and creates a giant crystal, which is inspired by Tevin and Melvin. He accidentally falls asleep and wakes up to a storm of lightning. The lightning gets out of control, and Diamond Head creates shelter for Max, Gwen, and the Spirit Walkers before timing out and stopping the lightning. Afterward, Ben thinks something is wrong with him and tells Max and Gwen to stay away from him. As you can see, his earlier encounter with Vilgax has really left Ben with a lot of self-doubt. Vilgax suddenly appears, realizing Ben understands the gravity of the situation. Max and Gwen don't approve of Ben's decision to give Vilgax the Omnitrix, but Ben feels he must as things are getting worse. Saying goodbye to his aliens, Ben is interrupted by random lightning despite not using the Omnitrix. Gwen hears laughing and discovers the Weatherheads working with Vilgax. Ben pieces everything together and realizes everything Vilgax said was a load of bullshit. Vilgax then attacks Ben, belittling him about the Omnitrix power. Ben is now believing in himself, so he transforms into Shock Rock and battles Vilgax, throwing his boomerang and angering him. The Weatherheads join Vilgax in fighting Ben, and it is revealed that Vilgax promised to give them Earth in exchange for their help. Ben, as Shock Rock, convinces them that Vilgax plans to destroy Earth, causing them to feel betrayed and attack Vilgax. As they start fighting, Shock Rock absorbs Vilgax's laser energy and blasts him, sending both Vilgax and the Weatherheads far into the desert. After the dust settles, Max assures Ben Vilgax and the Weatherheads won't be a problem for a while. Gwen praises Ben for mastering his new alien, who admits he was going to give up the watch but ultimately decided to trust his instincts. After this encounter, Ben starts believing in himself and learns to trust himself even more. One day, the Tennysons find themselves stuck in Sleepytown, much to Ben's boredom due to a lack of spark plugs for the rust bucket. Their frustration grows until Zombozo appears in a party RV, campaigning for mayor with his circus freak trio handing out t-shirts. Gwen, suspicious of the townspeople's fascination, soon discovers Zombozo's hypnotizer, but her sunglasses protect her from its effects. She quickly makes Ben and Max look away from the screen. Ben notices the circus freak trio entering a bank and sneaks off, while Max tries to sabotage Zombozo's hypno machines. Gwen decides to distract Zombozo by running against him in the mayoral race. Inside the bank, the circus freak trio, consisting of Acid Breath, Frightwig, and Thumbskull, is busy stealing cash. Ben transforms into 4 arms to stop them. After a brief struggle, Ben learns the money is for Zombozo, not the circus freaks themselves. Outside, Max struggles to shut down the hypno machines while Gwen attempts to rally the crowd against Zombozo. Ben tries to reason with the circus freaks, convincing them it's unfair they do all the work while Zombozo gets all the money. Realizing they won't be paid, the trio decides to quit and leaves. Ben, surprised by the successful negotiation, heads outside for an update. Gwen exposes Zombozo's true nature to the townspeople, revealing his crimes and turning them against him. Zombozo receives a text from the circus freaks announcing their resignation, prompting him to attack the town. Ben transforms into Omni-Enhanced Cannonbolt and defeats Zombozo. As Zombozo tries to escape in his RV, it fails to start because Max borrowed the spark plugs, allowing the town cop to arrest him. Before leaving, the townspeople plead for Gwen to stay as their leader, but Ben encourages them to believe in themselves and work together. The Tennysons then leave Sleepytown, pondering where the circus freaks might have gone. Turns out, the trio is relaxing at a beach.
Eat her some diamond shovel hands.
Meanwhile, Anemo is in his lab with his alphas and wonders how to achieve his scientific vision without stronger DNA. Just then, Vilgax arrives, subduing the alphas with drones and proposing an alliance. He'll help Anemo share his genetic engineering gifts worldwide if Anemo helps him access the Omnitrix of powerful genetic material. Meanwhile, at a dinosaur fossil dig site, Ben and Gwen search for fossils. After a small argument with Gwen, Ben leaves to find his own fossils and encounters Anemo's alphas. Attempting to transform into Heat Blast, Ben instead gets thrown by Mad Cow and is overpowered by the alphas. Anemo, with Vilgax, uses a DNA gun to collect Omnitrix DNA, but Vilgax double-crosses Anemo, taking the gun and leaving the alphas with Anemo and Ben. Ben convinces Anemo to his watch, transforming Ben into Omni-Enhanced Stinkflay, who removes the alpha's mind control units. Stinkflay saves Anemo from wolf and sheep and drops him on a mountain. Since they now have a common enemy, Anemo persuades Ben to let him help against Vilgax, and Ben agrees. Later, the two of them arrive at Vilgax's lab where he extracts the DNA tube and discards the gun. Overflow distracts Vilgax while Anemo retrieves the gun and transforms himself into Wrath. They fight Vilgax, who eventually bumps into the DNA cannon, causing it to explode with Overflow's help. Overflow and Anemo escape, but Vilgax survives, vowing never to trust a human again. Anemo then turns on Ben, but times out before he can defeat him. Ben laughs at him, knowing Anemo now understands the frustration of timing out. Anemo passes out, and Ben calls 911 for help before returning to the dig site for some cookies.
All your dumb movies prepared me for this. It's a classic move, Gwendolyn. Overfeed the monster, monster goes boom.
Soon after, the Tennysons are at a drive-in movie theater, with Ben mocking the old monster film they're watching. Meanwhile, Hex teleports into the projector room, using the Eye of Wotan to bring the film's creature to life, which starts feeding on light. Ben transforms into Diamond Head to fight it, but his attempts to overload the monster with light only make it bigger. The creature escapes into a cave, and Ben and Gwen pursue it. Hex, frustrated by the monster's overfeeding, reveals it could drain the world's light. Ben transforms into Omni-Enhanced Accelerate, trying to defeat the creature by making it explode with speed, but it grows even more hideous. Timing out, Ben and Gwen are confronted by Hex, who explains his need to activate the Eye of Wotan every 100 years to stay alive by creating a seeker that finds light sources. With the monster draining all light, Hex's plan is jeopardized, and the creature threatens their realm. Ben and Gwen strategize, realizing Hex might turn on them once he gets what he wants. Ben, as Willed Vine, uses Hex as bait to lure the monster, who destroys the creature from within, regaining full power but attacking Ben in return. However, he acknowledges that Ben saved his life and lets him off the hook just this one time. Ben and Gwen return to the theater and rejoin Max, who had fallen asleep while watching the movie.
Hey, Dad, stay awake.
We're alive!
Sometime later, Ben, Gwen, and Grandpa Max are on a train, heading to a gift shop. A lady gives a lecture about the train's history, which interests Gwen but bores Ben and Max. To avoid the lecture, Max suggests Ben use accelerate to speed up the train. Ben does so, and they quickly reach the gift shop. Meanwhile, 3 bounty hunters Tetrax, Krob, and Six are spying on accelerate with plans to capture him. While Gwen stays on the train, Ben and Max enter the shop where they spot a rail shark action figure. Ben asks Max to buy it, but Max refuses as it's too expensive. Ben transforms into gray matter to find loose change but notices the bounty hunters, who capture him in an enter cell. Gwen soon realizes Ben is in trouble and manages to get him and herself back onto the train and starts it, hoping to lose the bounty hunters. As the bounty hunters catch up, Gray Matter devises a successful plan to free himself. Ben gets onto the roof, transforming into Shock Rock to fight the bounty hunters. Gwen then takes control of the train, sucking Six and Krob into a portal and destroying Tetrax's helmet, revealing him to be of the same species as Diamond Head. They manage to stop the train and head back to the gift shop where Grandpa Max buys him the Rail Shark action figure as a reward for saving the train.
Alien kid who saved Adrenaland? That's me, kid. Autograph line forms here.
One day, Ben and Gwen are at Biggie Box, where Ben meets a young fan who praises him, causing Gwen to feel left out. Meanwhile, Charmcaster uses magic to turn Gwen's ice cream into a monster. As Gwen runs from the creature, Ben transforms into Heat Blast to fight it. Charmcaster reveals herself, seeking revenge on Gwen for breaking Michael Morningstar's heart, and teleports Ben away. Heat Blast defeats the monster, but Gwen is captured by Charmcaster. Charmcaster explains how she gained power from a book and admired Michael, who shows up and drains some of her energy. Ben, as Omni-enhanced 4 arms, returns to fight Michael, but Charmcaster defends him. Michael chases Gwen, trying to drain her life energy, but fails. Gwen then questions Michael's attitude and soon learns that he is only manipulating her to gain energy. Gwen defends Charmcaster, who realizes Michael's true intentions and uses a recorded conversation to expose Michael. Seeing his true nature, Charmcaster traps him in her spellbook. Though saved by Gwen, Charmcaster declares they aren't friends.
I'm sure it can wait. You wouldn't understand. It's a hero thing. Ah!
Bored without any action, Ben practices his fighting moves, while Max and Gwen look forward to relaxing at the hot springs. Elsewhere, Zombozo's attempt at hypnotizing fails, and he's abducted by Vilgax, who offers to enhance Zombozo's powers for galactic conquest, starting with defeating a common enemy, Ben. The Rust Bucket is caught by a tractor beam from Vilgax's ship, so Ben, being the hero that he is, transforms into Stinkflay to fight off drones, only to be captured. Max and Gwen sneak aboard the ship and discover a clown-themed mind control machine. Meanwhile, Ben encounters Zombozo and Vilgax, who reveal their plan to use the Omnitrix and mind control technology to create a mindless army. As the mind control ray targets a city, Ben transforms into Omni-enhanced 4 arms and fights Zombozo, who fails to hypnotize him. As Max and Gwen sabotage the mind control device, Vilgax fights 4 arms and nearly defeats him. Ben times out and escapes, reuniting with Max and Gwen. The trio runs to the Rust Bucket and Ben transforms into Omni-enhanced Diamond Head to create a ramp for their escape. They land safely and head to the spa. Meanwhile, Vilgax's ship reactivates and he throws Zombozo out before vowing revenge on the Tennysons.
Please, here we come.
Throwing sweet parties at the scheduled demands. Woo!
A few days later, Ben and Gwen are excited to participate in a box car race. As they prepare, Ben tries to use the Omnitrix to transform into Upgrade to enhance their boxcar, but instead turns into Shock Rock. Ben ponders why he hasn't been able to use Upgrade lately. Suddenly, Ben starts hearing strange voices inside his head and struggles to concentrate. The race begins, but it's quickly interrupted when a massive warbot attacks. Ben transforms into Omni-enhanced 4 arms to fight it, but his attacks prove ineffective. Even worse, 4 arms continues hearing the unsettling voices in his head. Eventually, Ben times out and Gwen rescues him. Ben is deeply disturbed by this. Everyone would lose their mind if they started hearing voices in their head. Realizing he needs to understand the voices to succeed, Ben decides that instead of running away from them, he should actually listen to them. Ben transforms into Shock Rock again. With Gwen still racing, Shock Rock tunes into the voices inside his head, guiding him to effectively combat the warbot. Using the information from the voices, he manages to destroy the robot. To their surprise, Vilgax is revealed inside the warbot. Shock Rock, following the instructions of the High Override, imprisons Vilgax in an electric cage. Vilgax ominously tells Ben that the voices are not a source of newfound power, but a harbinger of his doom. Meanwhile, Gwen finishes the race and the cousins start wondering about the true nature of the voices and what lies ahead for them.
Nightmare? No. I'm a champion even when I sleep.
Later, Ben wakes up in a cold sweat after a nightmare where shock rocks attack him and Gwen. The next morning, they discover a huge pile of scrap beside the rust bucket, with every RV in the park missing its engine. Suspicious, they think of Vilgax, but the poor octopus man is still locked inside Shock Rock's cage. That night, Gwen catches Ben sleepwalking and follows him until he collapses and times out. She discovers that a sleepwalking Ben as Shock Rock has been building a strange machine. The machine activates and starts collecting more metal to upgrade itself. Ben transforms into Omni-Enhanced Diamond Head to stop it, but his attacks are ineffective as the machine rapidly repairs itself. Desperate, Ben uses Shock Rock to release Vilgax, who is angry at first but understands the threat and tells Ben to run while he holds off the machine. This is probably the first time in the series where Vilgax actually plays the good guy, but after all the shit he's pulled to get hands on that watch, I find it really hard to trust him. Nonetheless, Ben, having learned to control Shock Rock better, refuses to run away and confronts the machine. However, the machine consumes his energy and transforms into a large broadcasting device. Vilgax attempts to destroy the device before it can send its message but fails. The ominous broadcast declares, "The full mini are coming." Realizing the gravity of the situation, Ben and Gwen prepare for the impending invasion, with Vilgax unexpectedly standing as a reluctant ally against a greater threat.
You might consider using the acronym TAP, as in tap, tap, tapping at the door.
Tap, tap, tap.
Vilgax reveals that the alien race known as the Fulmini are planning to invade Earth through a gateway inside the Omnitrix. Vilgax claims that he can help them stop the invasion by entering the Omnitrix, as he knows the device better than anyone. Despite their mistrust, Team Tennyson agrees to let Vilgax enter the Omnitrix. Inside, Vilgax and Ben encounter Fulmini soldiers, and Vilgax instructs Ben to transform using the Omnitrix's DNA pods. Ben cycles through several aliens to combat the invaders. Ben and Vilgax fight their way through Fulmini soldiers, ultimately locking down a chamber to contain them. They then encounter a series of challenges, including deadly security measures triggered by the Omnitrix. Eventually, they are confronted by a vast Fulmini army, and Ben, as Heat Blast, yaps how he can't use his watch properly. Vilgax acknowledges Ben's limitation, but before they can proceed, the security protocols are triggered, forcing them to find another way out. Unexpectedly, the door opens and Ben reverts to human form. Vilgax is confused as he didn't open the door. The door was actually opened by Glitch, who offers to help them escape. "I told you we'll see him later." Ben, surprised by Glitch's appearance, wonders if he's the alien upgrade. Glitch doesn't have time to explain Ben's stupid questions, so he urges them to haul their bum out of there.
Okay, let's do it. How do I help?
Wait here and be quiet.
After defeating the Fulmini soldier who escaped the watch, Gwen and Max notice the Omnitrix changing color, which indicates a significant change. Inside the watch, Glitch reveals to Ben and Vilgax that the malfunction was caused by their battle, which fused Upgrade's DNA with Ben's, creating the Omni-enhanced forms. He explains that Shock Rock's transformations sent a signal pulse back to the Fulmini world, which facilitated their invasion. Vilgax blames Ben for the chaos, but Glitch tells him to shut the hell up because stopping the invasion is the priority. He uses the Omnitrix's defenses to defeat the Fulmini soldiers, earning Vilgax's admiration. However, they sense a greater threat approaching: the High Override. Vilgax and Glitch argue about who knows the Omnicorp best, with Glitch insisting he must go with Ben to stop the invasion. Ben, ignored by the two, creates a Fulmini DNA pod and transforms into Shock Rock to fight. However, the High Override takes control of Shock Rock, preventing him from shutting down the Omnicorp. Outside, Max and Gwen realize the Fulmini soldiers are drawn to the Omnitrix's energy, and they prepare to fight. Glitch contacts them, warning them of the danger Ben is facing. Inside, Vilgax offers Earth in exchange for the Omnicorp, but the High Override refuses and banishes Vilgax to the Null Void. The High Override demands Shock Rock to open the Earth to him, and Shock Rock, now under mind control, breaks into the DNA loading chamber, allowing the Fulmini army to march through the portal. On the outside, Max and Gwen prepare to face the incoming Fulmini soldiers, ready to defend Earth against the invasion.
What do you call this alien?
Accelerate arms. Blast. Diamond heat. I'll work on it.
Outside the Omnitrix, Max and Gwen navigate through the Fulmini army with the rust bucket, realizing the creatures keep performing due to external guidance. Gwen devises a plan while inside the Omnitrix. Glitch battles the mind-controlled Shock Rock. Despite Shock Rock's struggle, the High Override asserts his control. Outside, Max and Gwen remind Ben of his true identity, helping him break free. Ben regains control and reverts to human form, confronting the High Override, who sends Fulmini after them. Glitch intervenes and saves them. Ben then introduces Glitch to his family, and Glitch explains their mission to shut down the Omni Core and reset the Omnitrix. They access the DNA pods, with Max becoming Cannonbolt and Gwen transforming into Stinkfly. Ben uses the pods to become a mess called XLR Arm Blast Diamond Heat. Yeah, I don't even know what that is, and they confront the High Override. Despite their efforts, they struggle against him until Ben, with Glitch's help, defeats the High Override. They share a hug, and Glitch informs them that the Omni Core is rebooting. They escape in the Rust Buggy, now fused with Glitch, and witness the Omnitrix receiving a new upgrade, fixing the glitch causing the Omni enhancements. The invasion has been stopped, and Shock Rock is now safe to use. The squad thinks Glitch died when the core rebooted, but when they start the car, they realize Glitch is now embedded in their transport. Season 3.
4 bare alien hands.
I'm not sure that's how it went down.
Close enough.
A few days later, Ben complains about his watch malfunctioning, while Gwen remarks that all the towns they visit seem the same. She also notes how Max has been acting weird lately, allowing them to indulge in video games and cartoons. Later, they meet Max, who has a big surprise. The Omnicopter, introduced by his old friend Phil. Excited to try the new ride, they decide who gets to use the copter with rock, paper, scissors, which Gwen wins. Meanwhile, Steam Smythe waits impatiently for the Tennysons and is revealed to be guided by a mysterious voice over the radio. On the copter, Max is impressed by its controls, while Ben sneaks off to try out a new alien Slapback. Gwen catches him as Ben discovers Slapback's power of duplicating when hit. This causes chaos on the ship, with multiple Slapbacks causing the airship to wobble. As the Tennysons regain control of their airship, they are attacked by Steam Smythe. Ben transforms into Cannonbolt and takes out Smythe's creations before destroying his airship. As Ben returns to the Omnicopter to celebrate his victory, the Forever Knight ominously declares that although the Tennysons have won today, soon night will fall forever. Something tells me this man is cooking some deep shit.
I'll call this one Gigantic Gecko. Oh, that's no good.
Humongosaur.
Works for me. Thanks, kid.
Later, Max makes adjustments to the Omnicopter as the squad is going on a world tour in that thing. When Ben shows discomfort about leaving their country, Gwen encourages him to embrace the change and leave his comfort zone. The two arrive at Biggie Box, where Ben shops for sumo slammers and enjoys himself until he hears a familiar laugh. Kevin Levin, his former bully, is there. This is the first time we see Kevin in this show, and if I'm being honest, I absolutely do not like this look. Ben tells Gwen about Kevin's bullying and decides to get payback. He transforms into Stinkfly and shoots goo at Kevin, who blocks it with a cushion. Kevin reveals he has his own Omnitrix and transforms into Wrecking Bolt. As they fight, Kevin explains he built his Omnitrix from blueprints he saw in a dream and added his own modifications. Soon after, Ben's watch times out, so he lures Kevin out of the store by hiding among fake fruit until his watch recharges. He transforms into a new alien, which he names Humongosaur, thanks to a nearby girl. Humongosaur's massive size causes chaos, and he accidentally knocks Kevin with his tail, sending him outside and onto the edge of a small cliff. When Ben reverts to human, Kevin falls into the river below. Ben and Gwen rush back to the Omnicopter, ready to leave. Later, Kevin, having timed out after floating down the river, is approached by a drone from the Forever Knight, who sees Kevin as a potential recruit.
The shape-shifting Kelpies. And Hearn the ghostly huntsman.
Meanwhile, Team Tennyson makes their first overseas stop in Scotland, where Ben complains about their surroundings, while Gwen praises the sightseeing opportunities on the Scottish moors. To convince Ben to explore, Gwen mentions the rumored monsters in Scotland. As they walk through the rain, Ben and Max complain about the fog covering the sights. Suddenly, the fog monster appears, so Ben attempts to dial up Overflow, but finds he no longer has access to him. They flee and hide behind a rock, where Max asks Ben for ideas, but without Overflow, Ben is unsure how to defeat the monster. The fog monster reappears, and Ben uses Humongosaur to create shockwaves with his tail to drive the monster back. Max and Gwen hop onto Humongosaur, who takes them to a cave. Max then suggests Ben keep the monster busy while he and Gwen retrieve the Omnicopter. Ben faces the fog monster alone but struggles in the mud. He eventually times out and is about to become monster dinner until the Omnicopter arrives and blows it away. As they try to escape, the monster grabs the copter. Max turns on the copter's spotlight, but they need actual sunlight to evaporate it. Ben transforms into Diamond Head and creates a giant diamond magnifying glass to enhance the sunlight and defeat the monster. As they try to fly away, lightning strikes the fog monster, making it more powerful. Ben goes to the top of the copter and gets struck by lightning as well, allowing him to overpower the monster and split its molecules.
Weird is coming to Top Tail not dressed as a cat.
Fake cat Gwen just licked her fake
On their journey, the Tennysons attend a cat-themed cosplay convention where Gwen competes in an obstacle course. Ben teases Max and Gwen's cat outfits, but finds himself drawn to the various cat-themed objects. As Gwen competes, Ben and Max watch, with Max playfully ribbing Ben about not having a cat costume. Ben retorts that he has aliens, prompting Max to quip that aliens aren't cats. When a mouse disrupts the event and causes chaos, Ben transforms into Wrath, a new alien with a feline-like temperament. Wrath's pursuit of the mouse inadvertently destroys much of the obstacle course. As Gwen effortlessly completes the course, Wrath's antics escalate, which end with him falling into the water and furiously attacking it. After reverting to his human form, Ben regrets struggling to control Wrath's anger. Transforming back into Wrath, he channels his inner cat to rescue people trapped on a giant scratching post. With everyone safe, the judges award Gwen a medal, and Ben receives a hat from Steve as a token of gratitude. As a mouse lands on Ben's head, chaos ensues, with Ben and Max chasing it, while Gwen joins in the fun.
The queen of old haunted Bishopbrook.
Haunted? Oh, come on, Ben.
On their Europe tour, the Tennysons visit their English cousin Wilhelmina, known as the queen of the old haunted castle Bishopbrook. Ben, terrified of ghosts, runs into the castle to prove his bravery. Inside, they meet Wilhelmina, and Max offers to help her clean the castle while Ben and Gwen explore. As they explore, Ben transforms into Heat Blast to light up a dark hallway, but his flames are mysteriously extinguished. He becomes convinced that the castle is haunted, despite Gwen's rational explanations. Later, Ben thinks he's saving Gwen from a ghost, but discovers it's just her in a costume. Gwen tries to cheer Ben up about his new aliens, although some are inaccessible due to changes in the Omnitrix. Ben encounters what he believes is a ghostly figure in the garden, but it turns out to be Kevin in disguise. Kevin reveals he has all of Ben's missing aliens and attacks him as dark matter. Ben, as 4 arms, manages to defeat Kevin, who then reveals the aliens were never lost. The encounter ends with a loud bear noise scaring both of them. Soon after, the Forever Knights appear and offer Kevin a chance to join him, but Kevin refuses. Before leaving, Wilhelmina gives Gwen a family music box as a gift. As they depart, Gwen reveals she was the one who scared Ben and Kevin with a phone app. In the end, the Tennysons leave England, with Ben still convinced he heard a ghost bear.
Your form is very delicate and natural.
Ugh, I think mine's broken. Isn't it time we go to the samurai part and see some swords and stuff?
After that, the Tennysons arrive in Tokyo, visiting a samurai museum tour where Ben's impatience nearly spoils the experience. Despite Gwen and Max's efforts to educate him about calligraphy, Ben's restlessness earns him a timeout. Outside, Ben daydreams about his aliens as samurai, then transforms into Shock Rock to explore the weapons room after hearing a noise. Inside, Ben encounters a knight stealing a sword. After a chase across rooftops, Ben confronts the knight, who opts for a sword fight. Despite Ben's efforts, the knight, with his armored suit and weaponized arm, gains the upper hand. Using a mace-like weapon, the knight escapes, leading to a rooftop battle where Ben, now Humongousaur, finally defeats him, causing the knight to relinquish the stolen sword. Back at the museum, Ben recounts his adventure to Max and Gwen, who speculate that the knight was testing Ben's skills. The calligraphy master, who reveals himself as the sword master, implies that Ben's true test is yet to come, which is to wait in line to try on the new samurai armor. If you missed the point here, the man just wants to teach Ben how to be patient and wait for your turn.
Case, there's plenty more fireballs where that came from.
Ugh, not again.
While flying over the equator, Team Tennyson's omnicopter malfunctions, causing it to plummet towards the ground. Ben attempts to take control using his alien forms, but Max regains control before a crash landing. They investigate a nearby machine causing electrical storms, where the Twain twins, creators of the machine, are arguing. Ben, as Heat Blast, tries to stop them, but is stopped. The twins activate their machine to split the Earth, which ends up creating chaos. Max and Gwen join the fight to help Ben, whose Omnitrix is glitching due to the machine. Eventually, the twins' bickering causes their machine to malfunction, and Ben defeats them with teamwork. In the end, the twins are arrested by the police, and Max leaves to fix their ride.
What exactly am I looking at here?
It's your music box thingy.
Later, Ben tries to fix the radio, but Phil takes over and tells him to stick to being a hero. Ben tries to clean the copter instead, but finds the task dull. Max suggests that he should take a break, so Ben takes Glitch for a drive. Krob and 66 are observing from the shadows and follow them. Glitch evades traps set by Tetrax and 66 and drives into a portal that snatches him away. Ben is confused at what happened and transforms into Wrath to search for Glitch. Wrath bulldozes through the woods, only to be captured by Tetrax. Krob and 66 then ambush them, but Tetrax and Ben manage to escape. In the forest, Tetrax and Ben evade the other bounty hunters. Ben continues to be shit for Tetrax, but they briefly team up to fend off their pursuers. Eventually, Crab and 6-6 corner them, leading to a fight where Crab chops off Tetrax's forearm. Ben transforms into Shock Rock, defeats the bounty hunters, and Tetrax opens a portal to send Crab away. T-Trax warns Ben of their next encounter and leaves through a portal, although one could say they're on good terms now. Ben demands Glitch back, who is then teleported behind him. After that, Ben and Glitch return to the Omnicopter all safe and sound.
1 million tickets? Could I maybe rent the belt? Here, got you a dumb finger puppet.
One day, Ben is kicked out of an arcade for cheating and arrives at the Rust Bucket to find Kevin inside. Kevin claims he thought it was his RV and transforms into Hot Shot from his own alien watch, attacking Ben and attempting to steal the Rust Bucket. Ben transforms into Wrath and fights him off, but Kevin distracts Wrath by complimenting him and then drives off in the Rust Bucket. The Forever Knight's drone flies by, complimenting Kevin and demanding a report, which also reveals Kevin is working for the Forever Knight. Wrath follows him into the desert and accidentally releases Glitch from the trunk. The two team up against Kevin, but he outsmarts them and drives off in a modified Rust Buggy, which contains Glitch. The Forever Knight's drone questions Kevin, who destroys it in defiance of orders. On the ground, Kevin tries to run the Tennysons over, but Glitch activates the emergency brake. When the Knight arrives to spank Kevin, Ben, and he team up to send him packing. Afterward, Ben asks Kevin why he would team up with the Forever Knights, but Kevin avoids his question and leaves. Soon after, Max and Gwen arrive and reveal a tow truck is on its way for the Rust Bucket. Later, at the Forever Knight's castle, Kevin reveals he has a plan to recruit Ben into their team.
Gee, it's pronounced hero? People!
I'm pretty sure it's Gyro.
A few days later, the trio is abducted by the Forever Knight and Ben fails to fight his guards due to his Omnitrix being locked. While Gwen and Max are put in a cell, Ben is taken into an arena where he fights a former opponent named Iron Kyle. Despite Kyle's new armor, he is defeated easily, and Ben now has to face more opponents in order to free his family. Kyle returns to his cell and tells Max that Ben is forced to fight his old foes, so Max convinces him to help them escape. Ben wants to leave the arena, but he is paired with Kevin at the main event of the show. Despite Ben trying his best to convince Kevin not to take this evil path, Kevin continues to ignore him. As Gwen and Max escape their cell, the Forever Knight raises the stakes with a laser, causing rocks to fall on Kevin. Ben saves him from getting crushed, and just then, Max and Gwen arrive in the Omnicopter. Ben offers Kevin another chance to escape with them, but Kevin refuses. Kevin then asks the Knight why he almost crushed him with the rocks, but the Knight brushes off his worries.
Watch out, it's Forever Knight!
As the days pass, Ben gets increasingly worried for the safety of his family, believing that the Forever Knight is following them. Gwen reassures him that Forever Knight is just like any other villain he's beaten and suggests they relax at Wheeler, their next stop. However, Wheeler turns out to be less than relaxing. They enter a building searching for help and encounter a man resembling Forever Knight. Ben almost activates the Omnitrix, but Max stops him. The man reveals himself as the town's owner and gives the Tennysons a tour. Ben remains paranoid, thinking he sees Forever Knight everywhere. In a souvenir shop, he chases a shadow, which turns out to be a cat. Later, Ben spots a shadow in a window and throws an anvil, causing chaos. Gwen tells him he's overreacting, but Ben insists Forever Knight is nearby. That night, Ben sees activity in the mines and transforms into X-Ellerit. Inside, he finds Max, Gwen, and the tour guide, who wants Ben to leave due to his earlier destruction. As Ben leaves, he finds explosives and fights a bot planting them. Ben then confronts Forever Knight, who dodges his attacks and offers Ben a chance to join him. As Ben defuses some of the bombs, the Forever Knight activates the remainder of them, which causes a lot of destruction. Ben rescues the tourists and escapes in a mining cart with Max and Gwen. As a rockslide follows them, Ben transforms into Heat Blast to melt the rocks and create a safe ditch for the lava. Despite Ben's honest intentions, he is scolded by Max for being reckless. The next morning as they leave, Ben sits sadly in the Rust Bucket. A small bot with a camera watches them. Elsewhere, Forever Knight observes Ben's guilt and disappointment, feeling closer to recruiting him.
Require one of you to accompany me into the rift. It's your time, Ben.
Guys, the big guy clearly knows what he's doing. He made the right choice.
A few days later, Phil is working in his shop when Max arrives in his Rust Bucket and tells him that Ben has gone missing. Phil brings Max and Gwen into the garage, revealing that he's been tracking the Omnitrix since Ben's battle with Vilgax. He detects its frequency and pinpoints Ben's location in Switzerland. As they plan, Phil receives a call, confirming that they've identified Forever Knight's destination. On Forever Knight's ship, the man has recruited several of Ben's adversaries, but the most surprising one is Ben himself. Kevin questions Ben's loyalty, but Forever Knight silences him, detailing their mission. In the Omnicopter, Phil explains that he's been monitoring Forever Knight's team formation. He identifies Ben's location as a lab in Geneva and equips Gwen with a battle suit. Back in the lab, the Forever Knight is working on a time portal to carry out his ultimate plan. However, as time passes, the tensions rise between the team until finally, Kevin breaks the ice and starts a brawl between the members. Ben ultimately wins, and the Forever Knight commands him to enter the time portal. Max, Phil, and Gwen arrive just in time to rescue him, but despite Gwen's pleas, Ben refuses to take any help from them, probably because they treated him like shit at Wheeler.
Can you tell if a mummy is sick? By its coffin?
As Ben and Forever Knight enter the portal, they arrive in ancient Egypt, where Forever Knight reveals he's using the Omnitrix's signal to locate instances of alien contact throughout history. He plans to prevent these encounters so he can become Earth's ultimate ruler by eliminating threats like the Omnitrix. Ben doesn't really like being used for evil schemes and tries to fight him, but fails. As Gwen, Max, and Phil prepare to fight Forever Knight's recruits, Ben and Forever Knight land in a time where a young Max and Phil build a powerful antenna to contact aliens. The Forever Knight tries to sabotage their plans but fails due to interference from Shockrock. In the present, Kevin saves Gwen from Charmcaster and then enters the portal to help Ben. He then fights the Forever Knight with help from Ben and Gwen, ultimately thwarting his entire plan. The trio even seizes his time-traveling gauntlet that allows them to return to the present, where they learn that Vin is now a good guy. Meanwhile, the helmet of Forever Knight lands through the portal, which means that we might see more of him in the future. Season 4.
It's delicate.
I'm sorry!
In the forests near Métis Rushmore, Team Tennyson and Phil search for a mysterious alien frequency. Phil thinks it's linked to the Omnitrix but can't confirm due to jamming. While Ben explores carelessly, one is worried about how important this signal can be. Just then, they notice some disturbance in the woods and find an excavator named Breaker 19 destroying trees. He accuses them of trespassing, but Gwen realizes they're after the same thing. Ben becomes Humongousaur to stop Breaker 19, who transforms his vehicle into a robot. During the fight, Gwen notices the signal strengthens when Humongousaur uses his sonic attack. She discovers the signal originates from the crash site's trail and finds a key-like device that was the cause of the signal. Ben uses it to transform into a new Omni-Kicks 4 arms, which gives him new powers that help in defeating Breaker 19 and his robot. Afterward, Ben celebrates his new powers, but Phil worries about the shorter transformation times that come with the power boost.
This bad boy open.
Do it!
Sometime later, Team Tennyson goes on an adventure to investigate claims of hidden aliens on an island. The team encounters a metal gate with a warning, but they venture inside, discovering an underground cave filled with alien-like creatures. As the aliens start aggressing towards them, Kevin reveals that Dr. Anemo, having escaped a time portal, created these creatures using DNA from the Antitrix. Dr. Anemo, confronted by the team, uses mind control collars to overpower them, but Ben, as Humongousaur, manages to turn the tables with an Omni-Kicks upgrade. Just as Dr. Anemo gains the upper hand, Gwen and Max, having secured the animal's freedom, return to assist. Dressed in barbarian outfits and commanding the alien creatures, they defeat Dr. Anemo, breaking his mind control over the aliens. Despite the chaos, Max decides to leave the creatures on the island, fearing their unpredictable nature.
I need you to reroute the ionization readout so I can access the isotopic. What are you doing?
A few days later, ring announcers Steve and Bill announce the CozCon competition, where various contestants, including Ben, showcase their costumes. However, Ben doesn't win and leaves the stage upset. He complains about not winning, while those with Forever Knight helmets get to stay. After Ben storms off like an angry Karen, Max engages with a lady at a mask stand and asks her about different masks. She mentions a special mask, but as it turns out, that mask is missing. Just then, a kid wearing a Forever Knight helmet bumps into Max and drops his badge. When Max tries to follow, the kid pushes him aside and escapes. Suspecting something unusual, Max finds security guards knocked out, with one of them being controlled by a Forever Knight helmet. Later, Max explains to Gwen that the helmet allows Forever Knight to control people, and tells Gwen to find Ben while he continues the pursuit. They take their case to Ben, who transforms into Omni-Kicks Cannonbolt and decides to focus on winning the contest. However, Siu is also taken over by the helmet and clears the building using the microphone. Realizing the threat is real, Cannonbolt confronts Forever Knight and chases him to the roof. Forever Knight is tired from his new body and tries to escape by possessing Max. As Forever Knight almost throws Max off a cliff, Cannonbolt reluctantly agrees to let him go if you freeze Max. Before Forever Knight can leave, Gwen jumps on Max's head, removing the helmet, which Max catches in a bowl from Ben's costume. Max calls Phil for advice, who suggests interviewing everyone the helmet controlled, starting with Steve.
I'm ready for anything you think that old man can throw at me.
Ben and Gwen engage in a game of sumo slammers, with Ben emerging victorious. Gwen then tunes into a Timbuktu live stream, revealing her podcast collaboration with Tim. During the stream, Tim mysteriously vanishes after entering Area 55, prompting the Tennysons to investigate despite Ben's initial reluctance. As Jetre, Ben easily locates Area 55, but is shot down by a shadowy figure, forcing him to revert to human form. Sneaking into the area, Ben and Gwen stumble upon a computer room, inadvertently activating it and summoning Phil Jr., an eye resembling Phil. Phil Jr. unveils his plan to mechanize Tim, turning him into a powerful entity known as the Tim Machine, capable of manipulating time by fast-forwarding a single second. Phil Jr. coerces Tim to attack the trio, leading to a confrontation where Ben, as Heat Blast, battles Tim. Despite Ben's efforts, he eventually times out, leaving them vulnerable. However, the fortunate accident caused by Phil enables them to temporarily incapacitate Tim. Regrouping, the Tennysons devise a plan to shut down Phil Jr. Ben, now transformed as Slapback, engages Phil Jr. in combat to stall for time. With Tim's suit disabled and Phil Jr. shut down, the threat is neutralized. Phil, regretful but resolute, stores Phil Jr. in a hard drive and expels Tim from Area 55 for meddling with the AI. Tim, who had feigned unconsciousness earlier, bids Gwen farewell, hinting at future podcast plans before departing. Ben 10 vs. the Universe, the movie. One day, after performing their usual hero antics, the Tennysons receive a call from Phil and rush to his house, where he shows them a meteor heading towards Earth. To stop it, Ben plans to use his aliens, but Phil reveals that correctly locking the key that unlocked the Omni-Kix armors can activate other secret upgrades of the Omnitrix. With the key in place, Ben conducts space tests as 4 arms. Ready for action, he transforms into Jetre and then into Omni-Kix Jetre. When the Omnitrix beeps, Phil tells him to perform his second twist, which transforms Ben into the new and improved Omni-Not Jetre. With this new power, Ben flies into space to intercept the meteor, but is pulled into a portal. Meanwhile, the meteor lands on Earth, revealing none other than Vilgax inside. Ben is stranded in space when his watch times out, but he's luckily given a space suit that helps him survive. He's then abducted by Incursions led by Major Glorf, who mistake him for Vilgax. Ben attempts to escape as Humungusaur and then Omni-Not Humungusaur, but times out and is captured. The Incursions teleport their ship, intending to bring Ben to face justice against the entire universe. On Earth, the Tennysons and Phil search for Ben, but instead find Kevin hiding in a cave due to his malfunctioning Antitrix. Gwen and Max convince Kevin they can help, and he reluctantly agrees to join them. Meanwhile, Vilgax causes chaos in a nearby city, searching for something that belongs to him and destroying everything in his path. In space, Ben stands trial with the Incursions, who mistake him for Vilgax. Despite his protests, Hatrax presents footage that seemingly confirms their suspicions. Banished to the Null Void, Ben encounters an Opticoid, who reveals Vilgax's escape and intent on revenge. Ben fights off various inmates using Diamond Head, Cannonbolt, and 4 arms, but is ultimately saved by Azimuth, who removes the Omnitrix and shares his story. Azimuth recounts how he created the Omnitrix for peace, allowing the wearer to experience life as other species. However, his apprentice, Vilgax, sought to use its power for control. To stop him, Azimuth trapped half of Vilgax's DNA, resulting in his own exile to the Null Void. After hearing Azimuth's story, Ben passionately declares his determination to save Earth, even without the Omnitrix. Moved by Ben's resolve, Azimuth agrees to return the Omnitrix if Ben can pass a trial. Ben accepts, ready to face the challenge. On Earth, Kevin defeats Solar and Polar Twain, but is confronted by Vilgax, who had manipulated him into creating the Antitrix. Refusing to give it up, Kevin fights Vilgax with various alien forms. Meanwhile, in the Null Void, Ben faces a trial where he must use the Omnitrix without letting it dictate his actions. After saving a prisoner as the alien Goop, Ben earns Azimuth's approval to continue using the Omnitrix. Azimuth helps Ben escape, and Ben's act of heroism convinces Azimuth that people can change. Back on Earth, Kevin initially gains the upper hand against Vilgax but loses his watch to him, allowing Vilgax to become a powerful hybrid called Anti-Vilgax. As Anti-Vilgax, he tries to kill the Tennysons, Kevin, and Phil. Kevin merges with Glitch to fight back, but Anti-Vilgax uses his powers to start terraforming Earth. Awakening aboard the incursing ship, Ben accepts Milia's apology and requests their help in returning to Earth. When Tetrax is discovered to have escaped, Ben confronts him and defeats him as Diamond Head, learning that Tetrax was hired by Azmuth to bring him to the Null Void. Ben allows Tetrax to leave and prepares to return to Earth, but an asteroid belt complicates matters. After saving the Incursons, Ben flies into their portal as Omni-Not Heat Blast to bring Vilgax to justice. After landing on Earth, Ben is warmly welcomed by Gwen, but is puzzled to see Kevin wearing Glitch's armor. Ben transforms into 4 arms and then Omni-kicks 4 arms to join Kevin and Glitch in battling Anti-Vilgax. Despite their efforts, Anti-Vilgax defeats them and steals the Omnitrix key from Ben. Vilgax, now mutated with Celestial Sapien DNA, prepares to insert the key into the Antitrix, but Kevin manages to reclaim both devices just in time. Turns out Kevin was a bit late, so Vilgax transforms into Alien V and begins terraforming Earth. Despite their combined efforts, Ben and Kevin cannot defeat Alien V until Azmuth contacts Ben, reminding him of his Null Void training. Ben asks for space and transforms into Wade Big, discovering new powers to combat Alien V. After a fierce battle, Wade Big finally defeats Alien V, and Azmuth uses the Omnitrix to remove the Celestial Sapien DNA from Vilgax, reverting him to his former self. As Azmuth leaves, Vilgax is taken into custody. Ben and Gwen search for Kevin, but he has disappeared. As Gwen believes he will return soon, Phil decides to rebuild Glitch before they continue their adventures. Ben 10 Reboot has received mixed reviews. Younger fans enjoy the fun and action-packed episodes, but longtime fans often feel it lacks the depth and character development of the original series. Despite these differences, the reboot successfully brings Ben Tennyson's heroic journey to a new generation. I'm not sure if we'll ever get another full-fledged series, but knowing when to stop is better than milking the audience and destroying your reputation. This is why I believe Ben 10 should be put to rest now. What do you think of this series? Does it do justice to previous additions to the franchise, or is it a disappointment in an otherwise perfect series? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for similar content.